सबकी इजाजत हो तो हम लोग शुरू करें क्या?
We can.
जी जी जी. So let me formally begin. So a very good afternoon to all of you, and I'm really grateful to all of you who've joined us today, in spite of it being a Saturday afternoon post lunch. But I'm really grateful to everybody who's here. And today's program is being organized under the aegis of what is called the Institutions Innovation Council. As I'm sure all of you would have seen, that the Institutions Innovation Council has been organizing a series of activities. And one of the activity that we have planned today is basically a panel discussion this afternoon, which is on Aatmanirbhar Bharat. We've been hearing about self-reliance for many, many decades. And of course, there's a new name now, Aatmanirbhar Bharat, but self-reliance is an old concept in that sense. And that is in some ways linked to what the center stands for, which is for innovation, entrepreneurship, and, even concepts of startups is about self-reliance. And so the panel discussion is essentially on Aatmanirbhar Bharat, local for local, make in India for the world. So ye aaj ka mudda hai. And obviously we have experts from the domain from Jamia who are going to be speaking on this. And I would really urge all the others who are present here, the students also, to give their views towards the end. So without me wasting much more time, I will first invite Professor Abdul Qayyum Ansari Sahab to initiate the discussion, and then the others can speak also for a bit. So maybe we can all speak for 5-7 minutes on the topic, and then we can have a discussion. Qayyum sir?
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Simi. I'm really glad that you quickly jumped upon me, and that I never knew. Of course, I had planned to speak in this panel discussion, but fortunate to be the first one, and therefore I don't have any fear. So whatever I would speak would be the first fact to come in front of all of you. So friends, this is really a great occasion to express ourselves about whatever we feel about the innovation and the grassroots level of innovation and the vocal for local. So in this panel discussion, I would rather start my discussion by talking about the Shark Tank India that has become immensely popular these days. Now, Shark Tank India is an Indian business reality television series that shows the Indian franchise of the American show Shark Tank. It shows entrepreneurs making business presentations to a panel of investors, or sharks, popularly known as, who listen to the entrepreneurs describing their ideas for a business or product they wish to develop, and then they decide whether to invest in their company or not. Now, these self-made multimillionaires judge the business concepts and products pitched, and then decide whether to invest their own money to help market and mentor each contestant. The show actually received 62,000 aspirants from India, out of which 198 businesses were selected to pitch their ideas to the sharks. And out of 198 investment pitches at the reality TV show, the 65 businesses got deals this season. Now, why I gave this example in front of my colleagues is that the entrepreneurs have been bringing ideas of the kind that are mostly unheard of by the common people. And they are almost in the process of exploring unmet and often unarticulated needs into demand and match it with the appropriate supply. You would have experienced, if you have ever watched the Shark Tank program, most of the ideas, I mean, they appear to be quite common and quite popular, but sometimes we realize that even to my mind this idea came several times, but I could not explore the possibility of bringing it into a reality. So those entrepreneurs, They actually bring the unmet and often unarticulated needs into demand and match it with the appropriate supply. Now, these unmet needs belong to both urban and rural areas, sometimes even to help the farmers in a big way. So, therefore, I believe the unmet need is the key word for any innovation to happen, both in rural as well as in urban India. We, the teachers, bear a responsibility to impart education to our children through engagement with different facets of our society in order to facilitate the students to learn to be responsible and responsive to the persistent unmet needs. If entrepreneurship has to be promoted and if startups have to emerge, then an ecosystem needs to be developed for mapping the unmet needs, tapping the innovative and entrepreneurial potential, and capping the increasing frustration of the youth. So there doesn't appear to be any subject in which we can't bring the questions of real life for understanding the theoretical and operational dimensions of discipline. While the teachers are supposed to capture these aspects on one hand, the students on the other hand will have to learn to analyze and influence the existing processes for enforcing and enhancing their social responsibility. And also the institutions need to develop simple pedagogic tools for enabling the students of humanities and pure sciences to learn the creativity from the grassroots. Now, again, grassroots becomes a key word. And I would here cite an example from the life of Mahatma Gandhi, who himself was a champion of the grassroots innovation and meeting the unmet needs from the resources available around. Once a few university students went to Gandhiji to seek his advice about how to participate in the constructive work in rural areas. Gandhiji, the first reaction was that he had not done much work in the rural areas, so how would he advise? But students were insistent. And Gandhiji said that he would not advise, but share what he would do in a similar situation. He would select the domain, an area in which he wanted to work. And assuming that he wants to work in the dairy sector, he would select the village where he wants to work and identify the family whose cattle produce maximum milk yield and who kept the barn most clean. So he chose two dimensions and two parameters of selecting the quality. One was the maximum milk yield and the most clean barn. So he would then study the practices followed by the concerned family from morning till evening in looking after the animals. Then he will select the families with average productivity and document their practices from morning till evening. Closing the gap between the best and the average will be his plan of work. Imagine if his students were to help in benchmarking the most productive farmers, entrepreneurs, local body, schools, etc., and then compare the results achieved by the most outstanding farmers and transfer those lessons to average farmers. Will we not gain significantly in the productivity? This requires redefining the process of learning about the excellence at the community level. Now, yet another challenge before us is to promote the originality. Now, we should encourage students to take up problems on which none or a very few references are available. And the glaring examples in this are available in front of us. If we had looked for prior references or the prior researches that had gone already, the grassroots innovation movement and the institutions would not have sprung up. This is true for many other efforts made by the country. India had used satellite for widespread education with the help of NASA when Vikram Sarabhai was laying the foundation of Indian space program. Other countries had not used satellites for educational purposes till then. So that was something, a work that went even before any reference was available. Other countries had not used satellites for educational purposes till then. When cooperative milk of Model of milk was established by PJ Kurian. There was no template to follow. So I am not implying that one should not build upon prior knowledge, but one need to be constrained by the boundaries of prior knowledge is not necessary. That is what I thought to share with you today evening, and thank you for your very patient hearing. Thank you very much. Now over to
Thank you
Seema.
so much, Kayum Saab. I mean, one could not have had a better beginning than your inspiring words. Thank you so much, Kayum Saab. I'm sure there'll be lots of people who will have, a lot of food for thought after what you've spoken. And I'm sure there will be a discussion following this. So let me next go on to Professor Muzakkir Sahab. Muzakkir Sahab, maybe we can hear you, and then, towards the end, we can have a more open discussion.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Simi, and thank you for creating a platform where we can all discuss our thoughts and perspectives on the Aatmanirbhar Bharat. So actually, I have few perspective of my own. For example, being a student in the early 80s and experiencing what was happening in India at that time, and then later on graduating from Jamia and then pursuing my higher studies. So what I'll just share a few in a slightly story type of a manner, that when I was a school student, then I used to see that there were only two cars that were available in the market. One was Ambassador, another was Fiat. And the cost was about 30,000 rupees. And you have to get it booked, and it will take several years before you can get the car. So it was a long wait. I remember my uncle purchased a Fiat car in around 1978. It was a very long wait, and once it was there, the life actually changed a lot. So at that time, there was no such scope of, you can say, expansion or development or production. Then in 1984, Maruti Udyog was established. And the car was a car for a common people in India. It was a joint venture with Suzuki Motor Company of Japan, and the price was around 47,000 rupees. So it changed the whole scenario in India. The production was very fast, and the bookings will not take very long time, and you will be very easily becoming an owner in a very short time. Now, luckily, when I graduated from Jamia, during my studies, I had a chance to work as a trainee in Maruti Udyog Limited. So that was my first exposure there. And I was, you can say, assigned one department which was known as TTPD department, Technology Transfer and Product Development Department. So that was the beginning when the technology was getting transferred from Suzuki Motor Company to India. And then the products were getting modified according to the Indian needs and requirements. But in technology transfer at that time, in early 1990s, many of the technological aspects were not even known to people in Maruti Udyog. For example, I was told that the material composition of the car body, the sheets out of which we make the car body, was not known to the people in Maruti Udyog. So that was the, you can say, hurdle in one sense, that we were not aware of what we are using. So it has to be one way only. So it's coming from Maruti, it's coming from Suzuki, and we have to use the same material. Then after doing that, when I started my master's program in IIT Delhi, I was working with my supervisor through a consultancy work of Maruti Udyog. So that was my second interaction with Maruti Udyog. There, I was studying the vibration characteristics, and to my surprise, the location of the center of gravity of the engine was not known to the designers there. So I'm just highlighting the situation there at that time, because it was just a technology transfer. Now things have changed. What in India we have been doing is that we are focusing on developing our own products so that they are matching with the quality and the performance with the foreign products. and especially when we are looking in terms of the cost. So we would first like to have a comparable cost, but in India we thought that it should be much cheaper here so that we can make it easily accessible to general public. And uh, that was one concern. So what happened over a period of time is, with the focus of all our education system, the focus of the government, that the technology transfer, it gradually transformed into technology creation. And that was a very phenomenal change, the way we used to work, the way we used to think. And the pace of our development started, you can say, taking a very strong wave. So the change from technology transfer to technology creation was a big leap, and it came about in a very gradual manner. Okay, we started becoming self-reliant, and this COVID, COVID-19, it actually opened up a very big opportunity to the whole of the country. I remember that we had skirmishes with China at that time. So the government banned many Chinese applications, and all the imports coming from China, they were under scrutiny. And then we have the GEM portal, which government is operating for procuring all the instruments. So it was made mandatory to mention the country of origin, because they were bypassing and then they were selling their products to India. We were of the opinion that self-reliant India is possible only if we produce here in India and we fulfill all our requirements. There are many students who are going outside India because they think that they have better opportunities to work there. And in fact, most of the global companies, they are dominated by Indian minds only. Most of the ideas on which they work, which are making them successful, are Indian minds. So what if those Indian minds divert some of their potential towards making this country a developed country? So when I started my teaching career around in 1991, my key word used to be to convert this developing tag into a developed tag. So since then, I have been asking all my students and inspiring them so that they can feel some concern for the betterment of this country, so that we don't have to depend on someone else. And to cite a very simple, you can say, incident which happened in COVID. Suddenly there was a COVID, we all were freezed to our locations. There was no, you can say, possibility of moving anywhere. And I was doing some work in my home and I need a paper cutter. So then there was no option. The markets were all closed. Then I started thinking how I can come up with a solution to this problem. So I just want to demonstrate and show you that this is one which I got. I had two these ice cream sticks, and then in between I just placed a blade here. I don't know whether you're able to see it or not. By the help of a glue, I created this paper cutter. And then I used the same cover for the blade, and then I put up a protective cover like this. So the idea was that this COVID has actually forced us to come up with indigenous solutions of our own. And I can say this is a small subset that should happen in our country also. That if we remain confined to our boundaries and think there, create a pool of think tank, okay, all the intellectual people there sitting together, finding out indigenous solutions, okay. So this COVID has given us this lesson that we do have the potential to make this country a developed country and a better country. For example, the NPTEL portal is one of the best in the whole world, and you can say millions and millions of students outside India are benefiting from the expertise of our teachers. So this has all happened, and it has all dependent upon our intentions. So we have followed the ethics in education, we have followed the ethics in research, in teaching, in politics, in our social interactions, and more importantly, the key aspect aspect of this self-reliant country is the utilization of all the resources in the best and effective manner. For example, when I'm in my office, and if I'm going out of my room, even for 2 or 3 or 5 minutes, I have made it my habit to switch off all my electricity, whether it is a bulb or a fan or anything else. And then comes another problem, that if you are too frequently using the switches, they got worn out very quickly. So that's another problem which I face, but it has become my habit, because if we are able to conserve and, you can say, utilize all our resources, it's our country, it's our home. We have to, you can say, save everything, not only just electricity, like water and everything. And that is going to make us self-reliant, in a sense that we have all the resources available to us, which we can use uh, for the benefit of our whole country. So that is one aspect we should all, you can say, understand. Now, if you look into the history of Jamia, we had a mission that we adopted our own method of teaching. That was the concept which has now been reflected in NEP 2020, that we must have India-centric education. In Jamia, we started that in 1920, that we were boycotting the other methods of teaching. The situation at that time was different, but now the things have changed a lot. Now everything has become global, and what we are trying to do is to learn from the experience of others globally, so that we can come up with better solutions. So uh, there is one thing which I feel very bad about. We all know that Sir C.V. Raman, he came up with the spectroscopy. It's a very famous, non-destructive chemical analysis technique, we all know. But I feel very pained to see that it is Horiba company of Japan, which is actually producing the instruments, which is utilizing this concept. None of the Indian companies at that time were capable enough to come up with an instrument using this particular concept. So, but then you just can feel bad about it, only because at that time we were, you can say, short of resources. And even at that time, most of the people were going outside India, because we had very little opportunities. We have very poor research infrastructure also at that time. But now things have changed. I think we have to look into how we can take up these challenges. For example, another thing which pinches me is when I'm using the softwares. I'm using, as a mechanical engineer, I'm using ANSYS software, LabVIEW, MATLAB, lot of them, but none of them has got an Indian tag. That pains me a lot, because we do have a lot of potential. The first email sort of thing was created by an Indian, but it went through to another country. Okay, but that is fine. I mean, I have no such issue with that. But we must come up with such ideas. Now, the main focus of this, you can say, present day government is to focus on building up the electric cars, so that our dependency on the fossil fuels is reduced, because we are all importing this fossil fuel from the Gulf countries, and autonomous cars and AI, in fact. So, all these thrust areas, they have been actually, they were in place. We were all doing research, but now we have got a very strong leadership in the central government, in form of our honorable prime minister, who is coining these words, and who is basically, you can say, pooling in the efforts of all the experts, so that they work in unison, in collaboration with each other, so that we can build strong educational institutions. We can inculcate the habits in the students of thinking for the country, for the benefit of the country. And I think it's a very big and a great initiative. Even though we have been doing it for many decades, as Professor Simi has said, but now it has got a new impetus, a new energy, a new enthusiasm. And I believe that the faculty members are the sole torchbearers. They are the motivators, they are the people who are inspiring. And the CIE, in one way, is actually creating those opportunities for the students. making them aware of what is in store for them, how they can come up with the startups, and so on. So I thank you once again for giving me this opportunity. I was sharing my thoughts. Thank you very much for patiently listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Muzakkir Saab. You've shared such rich experience, right from personal, accounts of Maruti about technology transfer and technology creation, as also the role of brain drain and the role of innovation, and so many things that you've talked about, and the role that education institutions themselves need to play, and how we need to, integrate all our resources to be able to actually achieve the goal of Aatmanirbhar or self-reliance. Thank you so much, Muzakkir Saab. So much to take away from what you've spoken. We'll hear next Professor Rahila Faruqi. Is that Professor Rahila Faruqi, your thoughts?
Anybody else, or I'll speak something?
Yeah.
No issue. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Simi for inviting me, though my day was very tied up, but I thought since he has requested and I'm part of IIC, so let me also come up with some thoughts. And I couldn't hear Professor Qayyum Saab. I just joined when he was ending. I heard Professor Muzakkir, and I really appreciate what he said. I mean, India has always, I mean, right from independence, the government after the economy, after the independence, the Indian economy was not in a bad, I mean, it was in a very bad shape. So the policy makers, I mean, the thrust was initially it was on self-reliance, and India adopted a mixed economy. So we all know the background. Now, this term, which has recently been coined by our Honorable Prime Minister, so Aatmanirbhar Bharat. So this is, I mean, sometimes it is quite a debatable one if we talk from the perspective of economists, because in economics we had said the absolute advantage theory and cost advantage theory, which says that the countries which should manufacture those products in which they are best. So from that point of view, it was debatable. But the good thing is that, I mean, there are a lot of things to say, so I'm getting pretty confused what to say and what not to say. So, but the startup culture which has come up recently, I think it is appreciable. And of course, the pandemic, like Professor Muzakkir said, and like when we are caught up in a situation like he demonstrated in his home, and so necessity is the mother of invention. We all know that. So when we, like it happened in our house also, when there were no maids and the kids had to do the cleaning of the house. So they came up with the innovative broom and all that. So that is one story. The second thing is that India is really doing very well in this startup ecosystem. And I was just reading recently, we had the economic survey in which it mentioned that India has now gained the third position in the startup ecosystem. And the number of startups in 21-22 around 14,000. And 83, India is now again, it has overtaken UK as the number third country in the world with the maximum unicorns. So India is now just after UK and China, number third position, and 83 unicorns, India. So unicorn, we all know that a startup which has a valuation of $1 billion. So 83 startups we have which had more than 1 billion valuation. So India is doing, and I think these kind of initiatives, definitely they'll be inspiring our students. Another thing which was coming to my mind from the marketing perspective, because I take marketing as a course. So marketing, basically the marketing philosophy says that we have to develop a product which will provide a better solution to the needs of the customer. So marketing is always about innovating, coming up with the latent demands of the customer, which customer may not have thought of, and the marketers keep on thinking beyond and coming up with a product. And then in terms of innovation, there is a concept. In fact, we were discussing a case study in class. There is a concept called frugal innovation. That is, you are innovating with limited resources. And in India, we have a very big market in the rural area. So many of the marketers, when they found that the urban market is saturated, so they decided to tap the rural market. And a very interesting case study, which we discussed in the class, was of Godrej, which manufactured a very small refrigerator. So the Godrej CEO at that time, it was an old case study. but it is still relevant today because they found out the needs of the rural customer. And in fact, the findings of the consumer behavior was somewhat surprising because they thought that they don't need a refrigerator, because they thought that we consume milk and all products on a daily basis. So, but even though they found that there was some market for it if we reduce the price. So, and another problem was refrigerator was that it required electricity, which was not there in many rural areas. So they came up with a small this refrigerator, which was about, I think, 45 liters in terms of capacity, and the electricity consumption was also very low, and it could also run with an inverter. So okay, they came with this solution and they named this fridge as Godrej Chotu Cool. So Godrej came up with this fridge, and that was a very interesting case study that how can a company market a product in a new market with an interesting or innovative kind of solution. So I think this came to my mind because we were very recently discussing it in class. So I think these kind of forums and this initiative which has been taken, definitely it is going to inspire a lot of people. And as Professor Muzakkir also mentioned that our Indians are, everywhere, whether they are top universities or CEOs of top corporate firms and IT giants. So we need to retain them. And I think the trend is already there. So we are finding a lot of Indians staying in India and working on these startups, starting new ventures. So I'm sure the students of Jamia will also benefit from these initiatives of Professor Simi, who has really thrown a lot of energy into all these initiatives. So I congratulate to her and to all the members for sharing their views. So that's all from my side. Over to others.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Rahela Faruqi. The economic perspective is so important, and the idea of marketing is so important. And I think we cannot, underscore the importance of marketing in today's time. And the examples that you cited, they certainly inspire and egg on students to also think about latent needs of society, which we can't think of. So certainly, thank you so much, Professor Faruqi. Now I request Dr. Mansaf Alam to please share his thoughts and ideas as well.
Thank you, ma'am, for giving me a chance to share my idea. We know there are 5 pillars for self-reliance India. And these 5 pillars play important role in Aatmanirbhar Bharat. The first pillar, that is economy. Quantum jump, not incremental changes. Second pillar for Aatmanirbhar Bharat, that is infrastructure, one that represents modern India. Third pillar, system, technology driven. Fourth one, demography, vibrant demography of the largest democracy. In the last pillar, that is the demand, for utilizations of power of demand and the supply. There are several sectors where we can work and we are not dependent on the other people. One of my collaborators in USA, recruiting the people, and especially from India. Then I asked, why are you people recruiting a student from India? The answer was simple. Indian students are laborious and hardworking. They work hard to achieve the goal. And so many people migrate from India to other country. What is the reason? We have to see. Why people are going from India to other country for the job?
क्या बोलते हैं इसको?
They are going in the other country. The first reason, the support infrastructure. If you are intelligent, you want to do something. Due to lack of infrastructure, you are not able to do the things. So we have to focus on the infrastructure
इसमें कुछ खास है नहीं, वही
If
चीज है।
infrastructures
चलो
are
समझ में
available,
देखिए।
we can do
Sorry,
better.
sorry, Mansur साहब,
नहीं,
सैयद मोहम्मद अब्बास
कॉर्डलेस
प्लीज अपने
वाटर
आप
प्रूफ,
को
ये वाटर प्रूफ है, पानी में भी जाएगा तब भी बचेगा।
अब्बास आप सुन सकते हैं
थोड़ा
तो प्लीज
होता
अपने
है,
आप को
हाँ,
म्यूट
वो
ये
करिए।
खराब हो जाएगा
Please
पानी में।
mute.
Abbasa, please, you are requested to mute the mic. Thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am.
Sorry, Mansur साहब.
So, friend, you know, infrastructure is a very important for the startup or for any business. Another, supply chain, demand and supply is also part of economics. You are going to produce the product, then there should be a people that consume. And the place somewhere we are dependent on the other due to the climate change. Suppose we are going to start a startup, start a company in the field of electronics to design a circuit. The environment is not going to support, so where we will fail. But there are two sectors where we can do good. Agriculture area. In agriculture, we can do better. We can also start the agriculture industries. Right now, this is the industries. Another area, that is the food industries. We can do better in the food industries. In so many places we can work and we can stop our brain going from India to other countries. What we have to do, we have to give the financial support. Finance is very important. Any business is not possible without the finance. Finance is very important. Infrastructure is also important. Without infrastructure. And another thing that is very important, policy. Business policy is also important. If these all pillars are available with you, you can start your business. One another things I realized, this startup is very good in India, but I realized personally, this startup in the city only. The startup is not started in the village. So most of the people from village migrating to the city, and they are facing a lot of problems. So we should focus for a startup in a village. You can bring the people together, teach them how to start your business with your existing infrastructure. That means you have to give some ideas. And several ideas, almost all people, we all are coming from the village. And there is a lot of scope of innovation to do for the people residing in the village. We have to think about the village people, and they have to train how to start their own business in the limited infrastructure. So Aatmanirbhar is a good concept, but we have to focus on some things that is going to help the people in the country. So, ma'am, thank you very much for giving me a chance to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Mansur Saab. And I think what you've said is so important, and we don't often talk about it, that when we talk about India and Aatmanirbhar Bharat, we have to certainly think about rural India and the villages of India where a large population stays. So I think what you've said is very, very significant and important, and for all of us to take note of. Thank you so much, Mansur Saab.
My one statement more, don't give 10 rupees to anyone, but make that people to earn that 10 rupees.
Right. Absolutely. So important. The ethics are so important here. Now I request Professor Naseeb Ahmed to please say a few words.
Very good afternoon to all the learned speakers and audience. So a lot of things have already been said and shared. So as starting with Ansari Saab, who has discussed about the Shark Tank concept, which is actually a kind of Indian Idol for the entrepreneurs looking for funding. So earlier, whenever people think of starting a business, so funding is the major constraint. But nowadays, this is no more. If you have a good idea, so funding is. In fact, in case of good ideas, people are chasing the entrepreneurs to fund them. So in this backdrop, and now we are discussing about this concept of Aatmanirbhar Bharat. So as Rahila ma'am has said that this Aatmanirbhar concept is contrary to the economic theory where we or it is contradictory to the concept of globalization per se. So earlier we were saying that we are moving and living in a globalized world where there's free movement of products and people and services. But now we are realizing that we are too much dependent on foreign countries for even basic products. So say for example, if I pose a question ki, before the pandemic took place, so is there any idea, anybody, how much PPE kit we were manufacturing in India in terms of percentage? Can anybody help me? Any guess? I hope there are people from the pharmacy or some science background people can. any guess, any idea? Anyway, so in fact it was zero. We are not producing even a single PPE kit being manufactured in India. 100% of the PPE kit were being imported. Then same is the case with the pharmaceutical sector. India is having a very big pharmaceutical industry, but surprisingly, almost 80% of the pharmaceutical ingredients or raw material, this comes from China. So what Muzakkir Sahab concern is also of my concern. Even if I'm looking at my house, the laptop I'm using, it is in Chinese origin. The smartphone I'm using, also the refrigerator, the TV, and most of us are, if you look around, so we are using. So in case of electronics, in case of even toys, in case of textile, so everything is, we are using which are not of Indian origin. So in fact, this remind me, long back I attended one conference. So one statement has, which I would like to quote. One gentleman has said that, China make hardware, India makes software, and America make money out of the two. So this is even true today. I heard this statement almost 20 years back, but if you look at, so this statement is true. So we as the Indian are, good in software, like we have, seen the case of Hotmail, or even if you look at all the, most of the software engineers at Google, Microsoft, or Apple. So you can find plenty of them working for these software giants. But this is irony. We have to think. And of course, this pandemic, and not the pandemic, but the Chinese intrusion had, in fact, make the government, suddenly realize what we are doing. So even before, Chinese, before even pandemic or the Chinese hostilities. There were many sectors which were having automatic foreign direct investment approvals. So now the government has restricted many of the approvals. But the question is whether we are able to be self-reliant. The answer is no. So if you look at, I was just looking at some of the statistics. So if we look at the trade or import from the China. So in fact, it is increasing. The import from China, though government has taken a lot of initiative to restrict it by curbing various penalties and increasing taxes. But the import is, compared to the last year, it has increased substantially. So now the question is, and there was one more interesting piece of news which like there were, during those Chinese intrusion, there were a lot of protests taking place in various cities. So, and there was a company in China making boycott China t-shirts and selling it to the Indian customers. So this is the state of affairs, which I mean. So now the question is key. I mean, and in fact, so we need to think. I mean, we need to think. Not from the slogan perspective, not merely vocal for local or Aatmanirbhar. So we have to also think of how to create an infrastructure, how to create a support system to kind of help and support our local industries. And there are many contradictions, like Mudakkir Sahab has shared his experience with the Maruti, the state of affairs at the Maruti. So that is so true that we are not quality conscious as a nation. So in order to so we need to first take quality seriously. And there are other a problem of mindset also. Again, from the automobile, Tata Nano is one the most wonderful product, and it has, in fact, a very innovative product, and it has hundreds of patents in terms of the design, engineering, and all that. But the product simply failed. Why? Because of the people mindset. Because in India, people buy a car as a status symbol. So some of my friends who are having Tata Nano, they were saying that whenever they are going with the car, so people look at them. Even in the streets or gully, children don't, give the way. So the kind of disrespect they are having in terms of a cheap car, and people are buying, a poor quality car by paying more. So in fact, this is so we need to really think, and Tata has to ultimately, close the nano production. So we need to think of, if we have to honor the innovation, if we have to have this kind of infrastructure and support. So we have to, as a consumer, as a policy makers, and we have to think of how we can go ahead in this direction. So I think this is what I have to share.
Thank you so much, Naseeb Saab. I think it's very important what you said about not just going simply by the slogan, but also looking at the contradictions and how to resolve and overcome those contradictions to actually be able to achieve the goal of self-reliance and Aatmanirbhar Bharat. And I think that's very important, and also to be able to assess for ourselves as those in the profession of teaching, of the viability and feasibility of looking at the idea of self-reliance, and where we are hemmed in terms of the contradictions of globalization themselves. So what are the ways in which one can actually either overcome these contradictions or integrate these issues, which are certainly challenging for us. So thank you so much, Naseeb Saab, for that. Now I request Dr. Nisar Saab to please say a few words. Dr. Nisar.
Thank you, Professor Simi. And I think after listening to so many senior professors at Jamia and their ideas and thoughts, there is very little that I can add. In fact, this was a very enriching and learning experience for myself. So, I'll just add a very one single thought of mine, which I feel, that is little, interesting as well as important here. So when we are talking about this Aatmanirbhar Bharat and self-reliant India, Make in India, so all these look like, very new, ideas brought in, very new, and kind of taking India towards a 5 trillion economy or so. But as you rightly said in the very opening remarks that, these things are not new. So if we just go back in history for, not very, very back, but only a few hundred years back, India was already a 21 trillion economy in 1700s. So, that was, we have already done it, what we are trying to achieve. So it becomes little important to see actually how we were able to reach at that point of time, and what is required at this moment. So one thing that perhaps we need to look back is how our cities were kind of hubs of producing one commodity, and especially one commodity. So for example, uh, Agra was known for its leather products. Agra and Kanpur were known for their leather products. Aligarh was known for its locks. Muradabad for brassware, Banaras for saris, Bhadoi for carpets, and likewise. So every city had its, singular commodity which they were excelling in producing and exporting, and generating economy out of it. And that was a kind of self-reliance that the country was kind of, getting into at that point of time. Somehow, if you look at the present scenario, all these industries in these very cities are kind of on either on a decline, or they are like already kind of gone. So we cannot attain self-reliance or Atmanirbhar Bharat or even Make in India project if we do not revive these industries which were already there in our cities. So our attempt at doing anything new or even a startup is meaningless unless we revive what we already had, and something which made India already the richest country in the world at that point of time. So it's little important that we go back, we see what are our inherent potential in terms of skill set, in terms of resources, and then try to revive that, or at least work in that direction. And certainly, that thing is going to, prove will prove certainly effective in this direction. So, apart from copying ideas from the Western world or even China nowadays, we should focus on what are our inherent strengths, and then we should actually work on that. So, this is something which I think even through the innovation cell or even through the startup ideas, it becomes important that our students as well as the entrepreneurs, they should look into what could be done with the brass industry of Muradabad, or the scissor industry of Meerut, or the wood carving industry of Saharanpur. So, what inherently can be done to revive that? And certainly, that when something comes with a hundreds of years of legacy and heritage and skill set, it has far more strong chances of becoming a effective product. So this is something which I think we should look into definitely, and maybe innovation can be an iterative process. So it's always like you take a step ahead and then come back. So there's a requirement of coming a step back as well, and that can also be an innovation actually. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Nisar Saab. Absolutely. I mean, you said it's almost as if we've actually given a project work to the students who are present here, which is that what you said, which is that there are existing strengths and skill sets and resources which are available, and if one has to apply one's mind in terms of what can be innovative solutions for reviving some of these lost, lost skill sets or lost resources in that sense, then what is it that we can do? So this is almost like an assignment really for all of us to think about. And, I mean, this can really be something which students can also take away from here and think about, that if they were to think of this as a case study and solve a problem, what innovative solutions would they come up with, knowing what they know, the strengths that they have today here in 2022. So thank you so much, Nisar Saab. We've heard so many rich ideas today, and I think now we should probably open the floor to the students who are present here. If they'd like to say something, either their own views or they want to ask anything from any of the teachers who are present here, the floor is open. So please, either you can post it in the chat box, or you can just open your mic and you can speak. So whichever way you feel comfortable. please do not be diffident or shy. I mean, we want to have an open discussion with everybody. So this is a panel discussion. So there's really, I mean, it's just a question of sequencing of who's speaking first. But your ideas, your thoughts are probably even more valuable to us because you are our future. So anything that you want to say, we'd be very happy to hear as teachers.
Meanwhile, can I say
Yes,
something?
yes, Shima. In fact, I thought that you logged off, so I didn't realize that you've joined back. Please, in fact, I was thinking that I'm going to request you to say a few things. Shima, please. It'll be such a
Yeah, because I heard so many learned professors and doctors here. So I was just thinking that, in the last who spoke about, reviving our legacy, this is really important. And I was thinking about it that, awareness is the main key to everything, because we are just thinking about new things in our life, but not reviving the old things which we had, how we can improve and this thing. Because it is really really important that the industries we have, the talent which we have, we are ignoring them, and we have big jargons coming up in fest and all that, this is the Kargha festival, or this is something, but not actually, nothing much has been done towards them. And I was thinking that how the awareness and the psychology of people, how one can change the mindset of people in rural areas. Like I have seen, like the small packers and the shampoos which are coming 1 or 2 rupees wala thing. This is so much popular in small district and villages. So something like the innovate, this is something which is very very innovative, and people are using even 10 rupees or 5 rupees biscuit. So these are the things, and we can really work on consumer psychology. This is important that we should pay attention to psychology of people, and plus the awareness part. This just I wanted to add, and thank you so much, and it was a pleasure listening to all people. And Professor Simi, I really admire your talent, and how much energy, mashallah, you have to carry out this thing. Every day we have something new on this page. And good luck to all of you, and congratulations to Professor Simi. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shima. I think pretty much like Nisar, I think what you've said is equally important, which is that we need to think about what exists and how these are successful models, like even 1 or 2 rupees sachet of shampoos. This is just an idea, but somebody would have thought of that idea, and that has become such an important and a marketable and much consumed product in that sense. So one needs to also look at the consumer psychology and what will work and what will get marketed. So that's so important, and one can't ignore the aspect of consumer psychology. I think that's very, very important. Thank you so much. And Shima, the credit for actually all these events goes to Shiraz Bhai. Shiraz Bhai is the one who's, one man machine who does so much of work that, मुझे शर्म आ जाती है उनके सामने उनको काम करते हुए देखकर. तो मेरी एनर्जी बहुत कम है, लेकिन मतलब जो भी कर सकते हैं कर रहे हैं, लेकिन शिराज भाई को इसका सेहरा. But thank you so much, Shima. I mean, it's only all of us who are here as part of IIC which gives me strength to be able to do something. I hope we can do something for the students. That's our objective, really. So thank you so much, Shima. Vanya ने एक सवाल पूछा है that good evening everyone. I wanted to ask that if someone is having any idea that the person not having a single penny in the pocket, so where should a person go to accelerate his idea into working? So is money essential for actually I mean, that's the basic question which Venya is asking, that without any money, can ideas still translate into something? So anybody who would like to respond to Venya?
Venya, just tell me your idea about which field. That is also important, because different company, different people are working different domain. So first you have to clear for which domain you have created an ideas, so that anyone can recommend for a particular company or particular persons.
Good evening, everyone. So actually, I was asking. I'm sorry to say, but it's not Vinya, it's Vanya. And secondly, I just like I don't have a particular idea, but whenever I think of any idea, anything's come to my mind. The only question is this: that if I'll get an idea, so how I'll just accelerate that into the world. That's
Okay.
why I get confused in many ideas. For example, if I'm going to a scientific field, so where should I go to accelerate that idea?
Let me answer Vanya. Sorry. So, Vanya, as I told you earlier, that I mean, you are thinking of money even before thinking of idea. So that means you don't want to become an entrepreneur, because entrepreneur doesn't think like this. So
No,
entrepreneur first think
Nasib,
of the idea, then money
Nasib
will
Saab,
follow.
just I have an idea. She is right. Any idea? This is the general question. If you don't have money, so you don't think for a particular things. If you
No,
have some,
Mansur Saab, I
you
would
want
like
to
beg to differ. I mean, money doesn't
no,
stop you from thinking.
no. Just to see, I want to take a cup of tea. I want to take a cup of tea, but I don't have a money. So anything prohibit me not to think to take a cup of tea. So she have ideas. She will also generate some ideas. She want to know if I have some ideas. How can I approach to someone? So answer is simply, Bania Malik. You can generate the ideas. You can bring it on the paper and discuss it with the people who are working in the field in which you have developed the idea. And the people working in that field, they can approach for the patent, and after getting the patent, so many companies will come forward to implement you. Just I'm narrating my one example. I got a patent. After getting the patent, so many company approaches me to give your ideas. We are going to manufacture the things. So if you have idea, just make the blueprint and discuss with the people who are working in that field. And then that person will help because they know about that field. So this is the good questions, Vanya Malik. And you start your ideas, try to write in the form of a paper, make a blueprint, and discuss with the people who are working in this field. They can guide you for the further.
Thank you, Mansur Saab. I think Naseeb Saab can also respond and Muzakkir Saab can also respond to Vanya's question. Naseeb Saab, आप पहले बोलेंगे फिर उसके बाद मुज़क्किर साहब.
Yeah, as I earlier, if you look at many of the unicorns, so-called unicorns, they have started with very little money. The Narayan Moti started Infosys, he was only having 10,000. Paytm was started, he was only having around few thousand rupees. So, I mean, if you have some idea, you work on it, you refine it, you can meet some of the, I mean, so the first step in getting funding is you have to reach out to your friends and family. So instead of going to external investor, if you have really a good idea, so you first reach out to your friends and family and get some small funding to work on your idea. So this is called as a bootstrap funding and financing. But if you are, at the very initial stage, if you are thinking of from where I will get the money, then you are, there is something wrong with your idea. So you don't think money as a constraint. If you have a good idea, if you can present your idea, I think here people, many of us may fund you. So the problem is that you have to first think of idea, and then you can think of money. So don't think that if I don't have money, so how can I think of idea? So this is the wrong way of thinking. That is what I want to say.
Thank you, Naseeb Saab. Muzakkir Saab?
Yeah, if I look at from a very different perspective, actually, Vanya Malik has posed a challenge to all of us, that you come up with solutions to this problem, that if you don't have money and you are full of ideas, what to do. In fact, this is a situation which we are all facing in this country. We have very meager resources and we have to make this country self-reliant. So she has translated that whole discussion into a very simple problem of an individual. So if you are able to meet this challenge I think we can, from a grassroots level, we can come up to a global solution of India. Thank you.
So well said, Muzakkar Sahab. I think one could not have summed it better. I think we all somehow try to innovate with the limited resources, whether these are human resources or, resources in terms of actual money and capital. So absolutely, I think you've said it rightly. There are a couple of more questions that are there. So Abu Zain says that what if our ideas get copied and someone else gets everything instead of us? So he's of course raising the question about intellectual property rights and about stealing of ideas. So anybody, Qayyum Sahab or anybody would like to respond, please?
Yeah, he is very right in that. As Dr. Mansur said, that discuss your ideas with the people who have been working in that domain. It's very important to approach the people who may not hijack your own idea. I mean, the student or the children idea might be very primitive in the beginning, but the experts working in the same domain might catch the idea, and then they can deliver into their own format and get a patent for that. So it's very important to approach the people who are most confident, and that is why the institutions are there. For example, the Vanya, has been talking about her own ideas, she should approach her own teachers first. I mean, those who are closest to her, and then discuss and elaborate, and as rightly said by Mansab, that prepare a blueprint. And then, of course, and any innovation means that you have to develop something with your own resources that you have around, or you can collect those resources from people around. So that is one thing. But while discussing this, I probably forgot the question that you raised, the second one.
This was the idea that what if our ideas get copied and someone else gets everything instead of us?
That one has to be careful about. One has to be very careful about. You have to approach the right kind of people, right type of institutions. Where in India there are many institutions. It all started with TIFAC, where the government used to provide assistance and free assistance, free filing of patents, and then so it has to be a very careful selection of people whom you go and discuss. So the Jamia Millia t-shirts can be trusted by anybody. The IIC can be trusted.
Sir, I have a solution for that problem. If you, after your speech, I'll tell.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay. Just one policy, that is the common creative policies. Before going to discuss with anyone, without telling them, you can upload your material in the common creative, and there you will get the license. And after that, you will go to the particular person, discuss. If that person will make a copy of it or publish, so you can claim because you are the original creator and you have uploaded it with under the license. So that problem can be solved. Another problems. Just I'm narrating, sir, one example. I have sent a paper for the publications, and my paper is rejected. And the same idea, after 3 months, 4 months, a paper published in the same journal. Then at that time, I realized somewhere may be the problems. Then I got a solution. What is the solution? Before sending the paper to any publications, any publishers, first I uploaded on the archive. And then after archive, we send the people. If someone is going to publish it, my paper is already available in the archive. So I can claim this is my work. So I think, sir, if you satisfied, this is my solutions.
No, which archive you are talking about? Which archive? Just wait. Which archive you are talking
one by
about?
one, yeah.
There is archive.org. That is a freely available, but they are also not publishing directly. They inquired, they reviewed, then published. Archive.org.
And then there is also a
there is also the various licenses.
Yeah, if your material is available anywhere, for example, ResearchGate and everywhere, the plagiarism question comes into effect. The publishers, when they check the plagiarism of your text, they would find that the same material is available elsewhere and they would reject it on simply on that behalf.
Okay. Sir, just my experience, same types of problems I faced. But now the journals are asking in the cover letter, for sake of our sake of our protections of our document, you can directly write down, I have uploaded in the archive, this is the URL, this is my paper. If you are not acknowledging the publisher, they can find out the plagiarism, because in the plagiarism there is an option to exclude the sources. That source is your own, but you have to tell them in the advance in the cover letter. And some journals also asking whether this material is also you uploaded somewhere else or not.
Yeah, correct, very correct. Okay, done.
Thank you, Qayyum Sahab. Thank you, Mansaf Sahab. So Abu would have got the solution, both the institution that he must approach and of course practical solutions also. But I think Shiraz Bhai also wanted to say something on this matter. Shiraz Bhai?
Hello. Yeah. Hello everyone. Actually, सब बच्चों से कहना चाहता हूँ, आइडिया कभी भी चोरी नहीं होता, किसी का भी आइडिया। कंट्री डिलाइट जो है वो दूध सप्लाई कर रहा है, सबको मालूम है, बट उनकी जो डिलीवरी है, उनका जो प्रिक्योरमेंट सिस्टम है, वो उन्हीं को पता है जिसका कोर आइडिया है, जो उसका आइडिया का एक्चुअली जो सीड बेरर है उसका। तो आइडिया बेसिकली कोई सुन सकता है, लेकिन हाउ टू इम्प्लीमेंट, हाउ टू प्रोडक्ट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, ये जिसका कोर आइडिया वही जानता है। तो यू हैव टू फील फ्री टू डिस्कस योर आइडिया, बट नॉट द इम्प्लीमेंटेशन ऑफ आइडिया। इम्प्लीमेंट को कभी डिस्कस नहीं करना, आइडिया डिस्कस करना है। इम्प्लीमेंट को कभी डिस्कस नहीं करना आपने।
राइट।
तो आप अपना आइडिया डिस्कस करें और बिल्कुल फील फ्री होकर डिस्कस करें। आप यहाँ भी डिस्कस करें, पैनल डिस्कशन है, आप क्वेश्चन लिखिए ना, आप बात करें, आइडिया डिस्कस करें। हर आइडिया का इम्प्लीमेंटेशन, सीड फंड्स की नौयत अलग अलग है, अलग अलग स्टेजेस हैं। तो आज जब तक आइडिया नहीं पता लगेगा तब तक हम बात नहीं कर पाएंगे।
Exactly, that's the smart one.
बिल्कुल, थैंक यू सो मच शिराज भाई, थैंक यू सो मच।
जो शिराज साहब ने जो कहा बहुत बढ़िया बात कही है। एक कंसेप्ट है ब्रेन स्टॉर्मिंग। ब्रेन स्टॉर्मिंग में सब चीजें प्रॉब्लम्स है, उस प्रॉब्लम्स का सॉल्यूशंस के लिए बहुत सारे आइडियाज को लेते हैं। अब उस आइडिया जो से बेस्ट आइडिया कौन सा है उस पर हम काम करते हैं। तो ब्रेन स्टॉर्मिंग इज ऑल्सो द इम्पोर्टेंट। तो आइडिया इम्प्लीमेंटेशन बात बिल्कुल सही कहा है। इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के जो स्ट्रेटजीज है, just you can keep some secret and tell everything, so you can get the solutions.
Right, thank you so much. Tapanjeet has posted something in the group. I don't know if he wants to say something, but he says that I wanted to ask that I have a lot of ideas in my mind, but I'm still a bit confused how to choose which idea I have to work first. So I think this is a larger question which we can come to. If Tapanjeet wants to say something about it, he can. Otherwise, Mohammad Umar Raza has raised his hand. Umar, आप बोलना चाहेंगे?
Yeah, good evening everyone. Ma'am, thank you for giving me the opportunity. Actually ये means the question जो भी आया था आइडिया के ऊपर कि आइडिया चोरी हो जाता है दिस एंड दैट, ये क्वेश्चन ये मेरा एक्सपीरियंस है एज ए स्टूडेंट की मैं बैक 2 साल में अगर देखूँ, मैं पीजी डिप्लोमा एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप का स्टूडेंट था, एलुमनाई। सो आई एम सेइंग कि आइडिया कभी, शिराज सर ने जैसा बोला कि आइडिया कभी चोरी नहीं होता, बिकॉज आप जितने अच्छे से उस आइडिया को इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकते हो, आपकी जो एक्सपर्टीज है वो किसी और की नहीं हो सकती। इट इज़ वन थिंग। एंड सेकंड बात, अगर आप मतलब मुझे किसी सीनियर ने ऐसा बोला था कि अगर आप करना चाहते हो बहुत छोटे लेवल पे, तो एक इंटरनेट पे ना नॉन डिस्क्लोजर एग्रीमेंट भी होता है।
यस।
सो यू कैन गो अहेड विद दैट। एक सिंपल सा एक 2 पेज का डॉक्यूमेंट होता है, मेरे पास भी पड़ा, इफ एनीबडी कैन आई कैन शेयर इट। सो वो आप करके आप किसी को आइडिया बता सकते हो। इट्स जस्ट अ पेपर होता है, बट वो एक लीगल आपके पास होता है कि कोई आपका आइडिया को बहुत अच्छा, अगर बहुत इनोवेटिव आइडिया जो आप चाहते हो कोई ना कर पाए, तो ये मेरा सजेशन है, लेट्स गो फॉर नॉन डिस्क्लोजर एग्रीमेंट। यस, जैसे नॉन डिस्क्लोजर एग्रीमेंट। इवन आपको शक है कि शायद चोरी हो जाए तो यू कैन गो अहेड विद दैट।
यस,
दैट्स माय सजेशन।
Thank you so much, Umar. So valuable, so useful. Thank you. I'm sure others will take note of that. Tapanjeet, would you like to speak? आप बोलना चाहोगे?
Yes, ma'am.
Please go ahead. Go ahead, Tapanjeet.
Hello. Ma'am, I have some idea. Like first, I will discuss about it. Ma'am, पहला मेरा आइडिया था कि मैं एक दूसरे टाइप का पेमेंट मेथड बना रहा था, जो कि एक नॉर्मल कार्ड की पेमेंट की तरह रहेगा, जो कि मेट्रो में जैसे हम पेमेंट करते हैं कि आपके पास कार्ड है, आप कोई भी टेम्पो किसी भी ट्रेवल में बैठो, उस कार्ड को लगाओ, वो आपका ऑटो हो जाएगा कि आपने उसमें आप बैठ गए, और जब उतरो उसे तुरंत ऐसे टच करके आप उतरो तो वो पेमेंट कट जाएगा। तो ना ही उसके लिए आपको नेट की रिक्वायर्ड होगी उस पर्सन को, जो कि हमें फोन पे यूपीआई में ट्रेवल करने में काफी दिक्कत होती है स्कैन करने पे। और यही मेरा आइडिया था मैम, बट थोड़ा कंफ्यूज हूँ तो इस पे भी वर्क कर रहा हूँ। तो वही मुझे डिस्कशन था मैम, एक ये है, एक मेरी आइडिया है वायरलेस चार्जिंग की। बट मैम दोनों ही आइडिया मेरे लिए काफी इंपॉर्टेंट है, आई एम कंफ्यूज कि किस पे पहले वर्क करूँ।
Any inputs to this very difficult problem of Tapan ji? दोनों ideas, competing ideas है, please.
तपन जी,
Anybody who would like to?
आप ऐसा करिए, ये सिक्का उछाल दीजिए और जो आपको आ जाए उससे कर लीजिए, क्योंकि देखिए दोनों आइडिया अच्छा है। आपको पहले एक को कंप्लीट कर लीजिए, फिर दूसरा कर लीजिए, क्योंकि आइडिया इसमें देखिए कॉमन चीज है कि आप सोचिए। देखिए जो आपने एक आइडिया कहा ना, जो मेट्रो कार्ड का, अच्छा आइडिया है। विदाउट इंटरनेट आप करेंगे, यानी कि आपको जो आप कंप्यूटर साइंस है, क्या लग रहा है आप?
सर मैं पीजी डिप्लोमा एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप यूनिवर्सिटी
डिप्लोमा का स्टूडेंट हमारे।
वेरी गुड, गुड आइडिया कि आपको विदाउट, इस वक्त देखिए सब कुछ जो इंटरनेट के बगैर नहीं चल सकता है, लेकिन आप करने जा रहे हैं कि बिना इंटरनेट के जरिए हम उसको कर लें। दिस इज द गुड आइडिया। लेकिन आप जब कम्युनिकेट, तो फिर कम्युनिकेशन कैसे करेंगे आप? क्या कोई नेटवर्क अपना बनाएंगे या कोई नेटवर्क ऑलरेडी है? क्योंकि देखिए इम्प्लीमेंटेशन प्रॉब्लम होगी कि आप कैसे ट्रांसफर, आपको कार्ड पैसा ट्रांसफर करना तो बैंक में तो जाना है उसका, तो बैंक में बिना इंटरनेट के कैसे जाएगा? इस पे क्या सोचा है?
मैम सर थोड़ा बहुत मैंने सोचा है, बट अभी जो मैंने सोचा है वो नेट के साथ है, तो आप चाहें तो मैं डिस्कस कर सकता हूं।
ऐसा होता है, ऐसा कंसेप्ट आ रहा है अभी कि ऑफलाइन जो है, तो ये कोई ना कोई नेटवर्क तो बनेगा जिससे के थ्रू जाएगा। आइडिया आपका अच्छा है, बहुत अच्छा आइडिया है। स्टार्ट वर्किंग ऑन इट, इट विल बी हेल्पफुल। इन दुनिया में कोई चीज इम्पॉसिबल नहीं है, एवरीथिंग पॉसिबल इफ यू थिंक एंड इफ यू हैव अ करेज।
Yes, sir.
Right, Tapanjit, I think you can then discuss the nitty-gritties of your ideas and get feedback on, the feasibility and the viability and the workability of your ideas, in greater detail with longer engagement. But Mohammad Saad, एक सवाल पूछना चाहते हैं साथ?
Yes, ma'am. I want to discuss my idea too here. Yes, so my idea was that I should create a platform which serves healthy food to the people who are going to gym, or particularly everyone, but basically for the people who are going to gym. Because sir, I have seen it myself and experienced it myself. From when I come back from the workout, I am not getting the proper diet that I am supposed to take. So the gym person tells me that not exercise do not matter at all. You have to eat the food also. So सर जब वो बोलते हैं कि 20% एक्सरसाइज 80% फूड होता है, कि अगर आप सही फूड इनटेक करेंगे तो आपकी हेल्थ बनेगी। तो सर मैंने एक्सपीरियंस करा है बहुत लोगों के साथ ये, कि वो जिम के बाद तो अच्छा डाइट ले लेते हैं तुरंत बाद, पर उसके बाद सर वही नॉर्मल खाना होता है। तो सर उसको चेंज कर पाऊँ, अगर उसमें कुछ हेल्दी, जैसे कुछ भी हेल्दी आइटम्स इंक्लूड करके सर्व कर पाऊँ, तो सर उस जगह है मेरा।
साथ आपको अपने सबसे पहले अपने साथ में एक न्यूट्रिशन को रखना होगा अपने स्टार्टअप में, उसको ऐड ऑन करना होगा। वो आपको उसमें बताएंगे कि कौन सा डाइट किस पेशेंट या किस पर्सन के लिए सुटेबल है। तो सबसे पहले आपके स्टार्टअप में जरूरत है न्यूट्रिशन की, जो न्यूट्रिशन डाइट को प्लान करेगा अकॉर्डिंग टू द पर्सन टू पर्सन। ओके, फर्स्ट आप अपनी डेटाबेस बनाइए पहले पूरा, फिर आपकी एक ऐप बनेगी, उस ऐप के थ्रू ये आगे इम्प्लीमेंट होगा।
राइट, थैंक यू साथ। एंड थोड़ी मार्केट रिसर्च भी करनी पड़ेगी, बिकॉज हेल्दी ईट्स तो अब बहुत ही पॉपुलर कॉन्सेप्ट हो चुका हुआ है। पीपल आर फेयरली कॉन्शियस ऑफ ईटिंग राइट एंड ईटिंग हेल्दी। तो इवन इफ इट इज अ नीश ऑडियंस दैट यू आर लुकिंग एट विच इज जिम गोअर्स, लेकिन आपको थोड़ा सा रिसर्च करना पड़ेगा इस एरिया में कि अभी क्या एग्जिस्ट करता है, कहाँ पर क्या वैक्यूम है, फिर कहाँ पर आप अपना प्रोडक्ट इंसर्ट कर सकते हो। सो थैंक यू सो मच साद। इफ देयर आर नो मोर क्वेश्चंस, आई थिंक हमने बहुत टाइम ले लिया है सबका सैटरडे में, जो कि एक ऑफ डे होता है, बट आई थिंक इट वाज यूजफुल सेशन। मेरे लिए तो खासकर बहुत यूजफुल रहा टू हियर एवरीबडी स्पीक, एवरीबडीज एक्सपर्टीज एंड एवरीबडीज एक्सपीरियंसेस एंड ओपिनियंस। थैंक यू सो मच। राइट, जी शिराज भाई प्लीज।
मैडम एक बात बच्चों से कहना चाहता हूँ, जो बच्चे यहाँ पर हैं, ये पैनल डिस्कशन था लोकल फॉर लोकल मेक इन इंडिया का। जितने भी यूनिकॉर्न अब तक इंडिया में बने हैं उसमें मैक्सिमम सर्विस इंडस्ट्री से थे। हमारी इकोनॉमी जब भी ऊपर जाएगी जब हम मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में स्टार्टअप में आएंगे। या इंडिया में एक मिथ सा बन गया है कि सर्विस इंडस्ट्री ऐप बेस्ड स्टार्टअप ही स्टार्टअप है, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग भी एक स्टार्टअप है। तो उधर अपना दिमाग लगाइए, वहां आइडियाज लाइए ताकि मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इंडस्ट्रीज इंडिया में डेवलप्ड हो और इसी से हमारी इकोनॉमी आगे बढ़ेगी, अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट का इशू रिजॉल्व होगा। सर्विस बेस्ड इंडस्ट्री होता क्या है नॉर्मली कि एक ऐप बनी, ऐप बनने के बाद सर्वर इंडोनेशिया या हांगकांग या सिंगापुर ले लिया और आप यहाँ से निकल गए, इंडिया को कुछ नहीं मिला। तो ये इसको स्टार्टअप मैं तो नहीं मानता। एटलीस्ट स्टार्टअप वही है जो आप मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में आएंगे, मेक इन इंडिया एंड वोकल फॉर लोकल।
मेड इन इंडिया।
बिल्कुल विशिराज भाई, बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट बात आपने कही और इसके बारे में निसार साहब भी। और एग्जिस्टिंग रिसोर्सेज है, एग्जिस्टिंग स्किल्स है, एग्जिस्टिंग इंडस्ट्रीज है जहां पर इनोवेशन से उनको रिवाइव किया जा सकता है। तो आई थिंक दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एंड मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इज एक्चुअली द हार्ट। आई मीन चाइनीज इकोनॉमी की स्ट्रेंथ बेसिकली वही है। सो आई थिंक आपने जो डायरेक्शन दी है स्टूडेंट्स को, इस पे उनको सोचना चाहिए। थैंक यू सो मच। अबू जैन, आप कुछ कहना चाह रहे थे?
Yes, ma'am. If we are talking about Aatmanirbhar Bharat or the same thing in these terms, first we have to go back to the basics of this thing. Like अभी इंडिया में ऑलरेडी ऐसी कंपनीज हैं जो यहाँ स्टार्ट हुई और फेल हो चुकी हैं। लाइक इफ वी टॉक अबाउट लावा और कार्बन, व्हाई? बट इन दिस सेम कंट्री इफ वी सी कंपनीज लाइक Xiaomi, every house has at least 2 phones from the market. So we have to get to people. We have to discuss with people that what they want. So we are working on ideas, but we are not seeing it on the ground level. So I would like to add this.
Good idea.
ठीक है जैन। अबू, you should discuss this in class also. So I think with that we should probably close this session because I think you have an answer. Rahila ma'am has said understanding consumer taste and preferences. That's very important. Thank you. So I must of course take this opportunity to thank everybody who's taken out their precious time, even on a Saturday. I'm personally and of course institutionally, both through the Institution Innovation Council, grateful to all of you. Qayyum Saab, Muzakkir Saab, Mansab Saab, Naseeb Saab, Rahila ma'am, Shima, Nisar, everybody, and I think Tanveer and Mukesh sir had also joined, but I think wo chale gaye. But thank you so much, and I'm really grateful to all the students who've also taken out time, and I've thought it fruitful that this engagement will be something that will benefit them. So thank you all of you. I'm really, really grateful to you. Really, really grateful, and thank you everybody. Really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you everyone. Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Thank you for organizing such a nice program. And this program is fruitful.
The credit goes to all of you.
And I've also benefited personally.
Yes.
I learn a lot from here.
Yeah, true.
I always try to learn from the student question.
True.
Okay, thank you from my side.
Thank you.
Thank you, Siraj.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So may we leave?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.